There are 5 kind of sets of classes towards from Gross and Thompson's model of emotion regulation. It's a useful heuristic. So here are the 5. So think about this in a stepwise way. 4 of the 5 are what we consider antecedent emotion regulation strategies. That is, we try a whole bunch of stuff to stay regulated before we hit a crisis point. Only after those things don't work do we try response modulation. Do we try to modulate our crisis, our high level of emotionality? Most of what we can do to help kids improve their emotion regulation happens before they experience that intense emotion. Yet most of the time when I say emotion regulation strategies, the first thing people think of is breathing. That's right, breathing skills. Breathing skills are fantastic, maybe, sometimes, probably not, right? But that's what we think. We usually think of getting back to calm. Okay, but that's only a tiny piece of the whole broad gamut of what we can teach through cognitive and behavioral means to improve a kid's emotion regulation, and by definition, improve their dealing with negative affectivity. So let's walk you through a couple of these things as we go. So the first to talk about is situation selection. Situation selection is the control that we exert over the situations that we go into or stay out of. So we all have certain control. Even young kids try to use situation selection as emotion regulation strategy. Right? Kids from a very young age try to avoid going to situations that bring on some anxiety or some distress, right? Something unpleasantness. It's a natural thing to do. And you can see how something like separation anxiety, which we started today's talk about, so fits readily with problems with situation selection. It's related to separating from attachment figures, but it's very strongly about avoiding situations that my attachment figures are not in. Okay? So how does this kind of go wrong or awry? Well, I might have a situation, I might try to stay away from a situation because I have an unrealistic expectation of it. I'm always using it, forgive me for this example if you've heard me say it before, but it works so well because somebody here hates the dentist, right? So let's use that throughout as an example. So you have a toothache and you have to go to the dentist, right? You could have bad, unrealistic expectations about the dentist, that they're cruel, that they don't know what they're doing, that they're gonna, arbitrarily subject you to pain, right? These are somewhat unrealistic, I hope you agree, expectations of your dentist. Right? But if you held these, if you didn't have good information about your social situations, you're much more likely to have unrealistic expectations. Or I might have a tendency to avoid situations in general, especially new situations, or situations where I don't get enough detail out of, right? Or I might have certain situations that are designated safe, and as long as I go to those situations, I feel fine. Right? And I can designate new situations as safe situations if certain conditions are satisfied. Right? All those things, in some cases, might really help you control your anxiety, but you could see readily how, one, many people with ASD are likely to be experiencing these kinds of processes, or use these processes, and two, any one of these, if it can quickly go wrong and lead you to avoiding situations that you should be going into. Make sense? How do you know about this in terms of the kids or the people you work with? You can ask these kinds of questions. Ask questions like, what's it about the situation that they're struggling with? What are they failing to understand? Do they have accurate information about X or Y, whatever it is that they're avoiding? What do they avoid? Is there a pattern to their escape-related behaviors that are situation-specific? What situations do they adhere to? What are the characteristics common to these situations where they feel safe? Right? So look at the content of the situation, then ask yourself, what one of these things belongs with the other, is just like the other? Ask, what is that, right? Find out the common ingredients that make situations safe for them. If you answer these kinds of questions, then there's a good possibility that they need help with their situation selection skills. Not with just being forced to go into one situation that they're avoiding, but you can boost up their ability to be better at adaptive situation selection. How do you do this? Well, one is you help teach people about different target situations, and you help to generalize that. How do we teach people about target situations? If there are certain situations that they need to have better information, what can you do with kids or with people with autism? Social stories, nice example. Yeah? very commonly used, right? There's this, how about YouTube, right? Now, I wouldn't advocate they just Google and go on YouTube by themselves, but you can strategically find those right videos that present the actual situations, right, across situations and explore it with them, right, in a positive way and get excited about it. And if they show distress, support them through that distress if they're watching it, right? Related to that, you can enhance exposure to the situations that elicit mild distress. It's such an important piece of this. What situations not are highly crisis related, but actually bring out some anxiety? Can you actually bring in some of this? You also need to work with parents and other teachers about helping them to help the kids, because often caregivers, broadly speaking, are excellent at helping kids stay calm by staying away from trigger situations. Okay? Very sensitive, very caring, very helpful. But we need to work together to figure out, to problem solve, how do we get beyond that to being able to go into stressful situations. Okay? You can't just put it on the child, and you can't just tell somebody who for years has been helping their child stay away from distressing situations, just go and do it, right? Go into those situations again. If they could, they would, right? It's because the reaction to those situations is so painful and so hard externally and internally to deal with. So it's not fair to just set them up for failure. Let's say you've worked with that. Let's say, in the dentist example, you're probably all very good at going to the dentist. Maybe you procrastinated a bit. Maybe you waited a little bit longer than you should have, but you've got to go. So you've gone to the dentist and you've stepped in the room. So you made the right choice on situation selection. You've learned all about the dentist. He's not actually incompetent. She doesn't actually like to give people pain. So then you're sitting there in the waiting room and you start to feel more anxiety still, right? It's starting to creep up now. So you're not in crisis mode, you're not panicked, but it's getting there, you're feeling it, right? You can choose different strategies to adjust your situation, modify your situation. We do this all the time. Maybe we shape our environment in ways that bring about escape, okay? Maybe I start to get angry and I flip something over, I start throwing stuff. I can't tell you why I'm throwing them, but the function of that is that I get kicked out of that situation. I've modified my situation, my anxiety goes down, right? It creates that maladaptive cycle. It's obviously maladaptive emotion regulation. I might rely on safety signals. So I can go in here as long as you're with me. I can go to the dentist as long as I'm holding something that makes me feel safe here. Now you might say, well, in that example, why not? Do it. Bring your troll doll. How many times have you guys seen, remember like people used to bring troll dolls and put them on desks when they were writing exams? There's nothing problematic about that. I mean, if you actually believe it's going to give you luck, that might be another issue. But there's nothing problematic with the troll doll. They used to rub their belly or rub their head and stuff. It's only a problem if they can't find the troll doll, and as a result, they can't take the test. So it's the excessive adherence to those safety signals that could be maladaptive, right? Or somebody might try to keep their environment so highly structured, okay, that they can't kind of move beyond. Right? They need it that way. So obviously that might be an issue with adjusting the situations. So does somebody you work with adhere to rituals that serve to keep them calm? Right? Maybe they do, and in some situations it's quite functional. If it isn't always functional, then great, let them do it. Sometimes people have small mantras that they say under their breath, and that's all they need to do. Fantastic. I would advocate for that if it worked. Right? Because it's empowering, you can carry it with you, it's subtle, it doesn't interfere in any way, okay? But often these things are kind of excessive. How do the people you work with shape their environments? So I bet some people here work with people who shape their environments through aggression, right? Or through self-injury. Maybe people here also work with people who shape their environments by asking for help or by saying what they need different. Fantastic, right? In assertive ways. Just because somebody shapes their environment isn't bad. We all do it in pro-social ways. One of the best things we can do is enhance assertiveness skills. That's part of cognitive behavior therapy for people with autism, is how do we build their ability to get their needs met in relatively pro-social ways. Maybe this means teaching them a communication exchange system that works for them. Maybe it means creating a certain set of scripts that they can pick on an iPad that they can request to express themselves better. Right? There's many different ways of building this skill set in, from people who lack a lot of verbal abilities to have a lot. Maybe what we need to do is figure out some type of scripts for problem solving, right? If you go into a new situation that you can't control, what are the 3 things you should do to help in that situation? And you figure out what works for them. I find somebody I trust. I find an adult that I trust. I ask for help. I show them my card that says, hello, I have autism, please phone this number, or whatever it is, right? You can figure out the strategies, the behavioral supports that are needed for that person. But most important around situation modification is you want to find that balance between modifying the situation so much that we feel no anxiety and experiencing distress in that situation in a controlled way. Okay? What we don't want is we don't want people to be so good at modifying their environments that they never experience anxiety, because there will be a time, or anger or any emotions, because there will be a time where they can't modify their environments and the emotions will come about. So it's about slowly eliciting distress and building those distress tolerance skills at the same time as building these other kind of coping mechanisms. Is that fair?